Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. My 23 females dad passed away when I was 7 and my mom remarried when I was 10. My stepdad had a son who is now 22. Before my dad died, he had managed to save a small college fund for me, around 4 to 5k, even though he wasn't well off. I only found out about this later from my grandma. After my dad passed, my mom contributed a little to the fund, but after she remarried, she stopped contributing entirely. My stepdad made it clear early on that my college education wasn't his responsibility, which I understood and accepted. But what really ruined my life was that my mom started contributing to my stepbrother's college fund instead of mine. My stepbrother is considerably smarter than me, and his dad always wanted him to be a doctor. My mom justified her actions by saying that my stepbrother had more potential and that I wasn't that smart, which really stung. So it made sense to contribute to his fund rather than mine. When it was time for me to go to college, I didn't receive any financial aid from my mom or stepdad, not even the small amount my dad had saved for me. Apparently, my mom gave that money to my stepdad when he had some financial problems, and their main goal was sending my stepbrother to med school. They had no plans for me. I felt hurt and abandoned, so I moved out as soon as I could. I did 2 years at a community college, then transferred to a 4-year school and graduated with a small amount of debt. I'm not close to my family anymore, and while my mom has tried to reach out, I've been really wary of letting her back into my life. Recently, I found out that my stepbrother didn't get into med school due to a low MCAT score. He ended up majoring in chemistry, but without a post-grad degree, he's struggling to find a decent paying job. He's looking for a lab position, but my mom and stepdad are against him becoming a lab tech and want him to go to grad school to aim for a better paying job. The problem is they don't have any money left to pay for it since his college fund is used up. They're now asking me to fund his post-grad education, which costs around 40k a year. I said no because I'm barely keeping my head above water financially as it is. But my family is furious with me. They're saying I'm being selfish and that I should help because he's far too smart to be a lab tech, and that his dreams need to be achieved at all costs. I'm still hurt because they didn't help me at all when I needed it. And now they're expecting me to bail their favorite kid out. I'm just venting here. I will never help them out. And to be honest, I had a good laugh when I heard my smart-ass stepbrother is going to be a lab tech instead of the doctor he wanted. Update. Hey everyone, I wanted to give an update after my last post. First off, thank you so much for all the advice and support. I really needed it. After reading through your comments, I took your advice and immediately froze my credit with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. I didn't want to risk my mom or stepdad trying to take out a loan in my name to fund my stepbrother's education. Since then, my mom has been harassing me non-stop. She's tried every angle to guilt me into paying for my stepbrother's post-grad. She's even gone so far as to say I owe my stepdad for all the utilities and bills he paid for while I lived with them. Like what? She said I need to do this one thing for the family. The mental gymnastics are honestly mind-boggling, but I've stopped engaging with her. I did not reply to any of her messages. I've got my own problems to deal with, and I'm not going to let them drag me back into their mess. For years, they treated me like an afterthought, and now they want to act like we're all a big happy family when it suits them. Screw that. I've moved on, and I'm focusing on my own life and well-being. Thanks again to everyone who offered advice. It really helped me take control of the situation. I'm done with them, and I'm moving forward with a clear conscience. I am so sorry your mother abandoned you and picked her new family over you, OP. They don't deserve anything, not even a single dime from you after what they did. Your mom basically stole from you to give her smart stepson and fund him through college because she and your stepdad believed you were not smart enough. They were horrible to you, and their golden child didn't even end up being a medical doctor after everything they did. Your mother threw away her relationship with you for this, cut contacts and say good riddance. Story 2. My 55 male's son, 25 male, is mad that I'm giving my daughter, 30 female, control of my company. My wife, 53 female, and I don't know what to do. Background. I met my wife when I was studying overseas when I was 27. She was 25 at that time with a 2-year-old daughter. She was, and to this day is, a damn good artist and a middle school art teacher. Her brother was my first friend overseas and still is one of my best friends, and I met my wife when he invited me for Christmas dinner with his family. I have no idea what she saw in a broke college student in his late 20s, but I thank my lucky stars she gave me a chance. 2 years later, we were married, and a year after that, at 30, we had our son, our second child. I adopted her daughter shortly after we were married, and I love her to death. She's always been a daddy's girl, and no matter what anyone says, she's mine. Despite the fact that she's very white and I'm as Asian as they come. I eventually graduated and landed a job as a financial analyst in a pretty big company. I busted my ass off at work, and when I wasn't at work, I was busy trading in the stock market. After a couple of years, good investments and a lot of loans, I took a leap of faith and quit my job to start my own company. When my daughter was 14 and my son was 9, I started making 7 figures a year from what I earned from the company and my several investments. I slowed down after that and cut my hours a bit, so I would be more involved in my children's lives. Since my daughter was young, she's always shown interest in business. She would spend her Saturdays with me in my company and wanted to learn all about it. I offered to take my son too, but he wasn't interested and wanted to be an artist like his mother. Now, I just want to clarify that I was very involved in both my children's lives. I make it a point to talk to both of them over dinner almost every night. One of my son's first portraits, which was of me and my wife, still hangs in my office at work. Because of this, I've always groomed my daughter to be my successor. She is the one who always took interest in running my company one day and even studied in a prestigious business school. My son studied art in Italy. Now, I know every parent says this, but my daughter is a genius when it comes to business. She works, or at least worked, in a big international company based in Europe before coming home last year to work with me and mine, where she has plans to scale it to even greater heights. It's still not a very big company, and this is where the problem starts. My wife and I are about to retire early, I know, to travel the world. She's never been into luxury items, unlike me, but she does love to travel. So we sat our children down and announced that we were retiring early and that they would be getting some of their inheritance soon. I wanted to sort out my estate very early to avoid problems for them when I'm gone. The moment I said, "Daughter will be taking my place in the company," my son was livid. He started accusing me of favoritism, being a useless dad, and his sister of manipulating me into giving it to her and leaving him with nothing. My wife tried to calm him down, but he stormed out, but not before yelling, "She's not even your real daughter anyway." I didn't even know how to feel after that. It was a mix of pain, anger, regret, and a whole lot of other stuff. I was hurt by some of the things he said, angry about how he said his sister wasn't my daughter, and regret because somehow I feel like I failed him as a father. I wasn't even finished explaining how things would go. I hugged my daughter who was crying and reassured her that I loved her so much, while my wife tried to get a hold of our son. I tried to be a good father to him. I paid for his international education, attended all his art events, and even introduced him to some of my friends that were into art. I made sure to take him on father-son trips too, every couple of months. It never occurred to me that he was ever remotely jealous of his sister being my apprentice, despite the fact that I did try to take him with us when we went to work. Also, I never planned on giving one child more than the other. My daughter was only taking over running the company, but the ownership would have been 55 to 45, so my son would still own part of the company. I own 3 condos in the city, 2 of which are occupied by my children, which they would keep, and the 3rd would go to my son to make up for giving his sister more equity in the company. He would have also kept my watch collection, which I promised to him at a young age. Both kids would have got a substantial amount of money too. My current home would still be mine to rent out, and I'm keeping my stocks, so I would still have some money coming in to fund our travels. It's been a week and my son still won't answer his mother's call. I'm still mad about how he acted, but I still want him to be a part of our lives. My daughter even offered to give him everything if it would make him happy, but I shut that down immediately. I worked hard for both my children. How do I proceed? Part of me wants to call, but I know we would just get into another screaming match because the things he said still hurt me. Any advice would be helpful. Edit. I don't think this part was clear. My son never heard how I was going to split my assets and ownership of the company. He only heard the part where I said my daughter was taking my place before he went ballistic. My son doesn't fully rely on my money. He lives in my condo and I paid for his car, but he makes his own money and his work sells. He's very passionate about art and is very good at it. You sound like a great father, OP. A very good father, and you did absolutely nothing wrong with giving your daughter your business to run. She is the obvious choice. She has been into it since she was younger, while your son was more into arts. It wouldn't be fair to either of them if you decided to leave your business to your son while fully knowing he's more of an artistic person. He needs to fully hear you out. Maybe he thought you were giving all of your shares to your daughter. Be sure to also talk to him about apologizing to his sister when you reach him. She did nothing wrong, and he needs to stop talking about how she was adopted every time he's pissed. Now for some comments. To be honest, you still need to talk to him. If he doesn't want to listen, that's on him. He jumped to all sorts of conclusions when you weren't even done with the discussion. Obviously, it makes sense to leave your daughter more of the business as she will be the one running it and doing the day-to-day stuff. If he doesn't understand that, that's on him. He sounds extremely spoiled. Here's what I don't understand. Why does he want the company if he's not interested in business? I think you should reach out one more time. Let him know you're ready to talk when he is, and once he's cooled down, explain what an entitled little shit he is, that his sister is your daughter, legally and emotionally, and that she is more qualified to run a business. Let him know that you love them both equally and that they will both be well provided for by your inheritance. The first words you say your son responded with were accusations of favoritism. It seems that he has some deep hurts that have nothing to do with money. It sounds like you are a well-meaning and loving father to both your kids. But if your son is an artist, and possibly a little immature and insecure about that, you do not speak to whether he is independently succeeding in a career. He may feel like you don't value him as much as his sister. You've built a wonderful life for yourself and your family. You deserve a relaxing retirement. You also owe it to yourself and your wife to try to understand your son's hurt feelings and let him feel as valued and appreciated as his sister. In the end, that is worth more than all the money. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for pranking my sister in front of our entire family? So, to clarify, my sister and I have a fairly complicated relationship. She was my favorite growing up. I always felt like an outcast in my family, and it led to me picking on her some. Because honestly, it's the only way I could get my family to even notice I existed. But my sister and I, we don't like each other at all. Because honestly, she ruined my life and stole my childhood from me. She was pretty much the baby of the family, spoiled rotten. And I've really taken any way to get back at her as I grew up, even today. So this Christmas, I decided to pull a little prank on her. I got her a gift. It was an Xbox One. So I gave her the wrapped Xbox and told her it was an apology item and that I was sorry for everything I ever did to her. She was so happy. I gave her the present in front of our entire family. She opened it and talked endlessly about all the cool features written on the box. I told her to open it, and when she did, she started crying because it wasn't an actual Xbox. I just bought an empty Xbox case and just put a big rock inside. All she said was, "Where's the real one?" and I revealed it was a big prank. There was no Xbox. I told her to go plug it up and play with it. She threw the box on the ground and told me, "I hate you. You're the worst brother ever. You ruined my Christmas," and ran off crying into her room. I looked around expecting my family to laugh at it, but they just stared at me with a disappointed look. They scolded me about it. But really, was it that bad of a prank? Are they just babying her? Was it just a harmless prank? Am I the a-hole for pulling this prank, or is my family just babying her? Now for some comments. Yeah, you're a petty a-hole for punishing a child for the mistakes of adults. Like, it takes a special type of mental deficiency to blame a person for how others treat them. Because you're basically advanced jealous. How many more times do you want to ask if your family is babying her before you manage to believe it yourself, so you don't feel bad for being such a shit? I read your question, comments, and the long post you linked to. I seriously think you should go to therapy. You memorized an insane amount of details of minor wrongdoings of your parents, which happen all the time to everybody. And above all, you blame your sister for them. Reading all this sounds like it was written by a 13-year-old. You're 20. It's seriously wrong to hold a grudge for this long for such small things. I'm sure your mom tried her best to do well, and you just remember all the bad. I'm sure she would be so hurt if she ever read this. I feel so sorry for you. You're the a-hole, obviously. I recommend actually buying the Xbox now to give to her. Can't afford it? Find a way. And when you give it to her, explain to her how sorry you are. Take the opportunity to explain that you resented her because you felt like she was favored, but it wasn't fair of you to mistreat her. Here's the important point. This isn't an opportunity to defend yourself or point out why you think she's favored. Don't get into an argument, but it would be helpful if she knew how you feel. Tell her how you would like to use the new Xbox as a way to spend time with her. You can use this moment to turn your relationship around, but you have to be sincere.